By the year 743 AD, the Frankish throne looks exactly like this, occupied by a young man named Childeric III, sitting in silence, heavily guarded, and completely stripped of authority. Childeric belongs to the Merovingian dynasty. They have held the title of king for 3 centuries, but by this point, the bloodline operates essentially as a shell company. They wear the crown, but they possess 0 actual power. The true equity of the state is held by this man, Pepin the Short. His official title is Mayor of the Palace, but in practice, he is the Frankish realm's supreme military executive. Pepin commands the standing armies. He manages the massive royal estates. When domestic rebellions flare up in places like Bavaria or Aquitaine, Pepin is the one who rides out to crush them. But Pepin has a severe legal vulnerability. The laws of the Franks tie the unity of the entire kingdom directly to the Merovingian bloodline. Pepin controls the country, but he does not legally own it. His core challenge is clear. He needs to seize legal ownership of the state and close the gap between reality and the law, and he has to do it without triggering a violent military coup that would tear the kingdom apart. To pull this off, Pepin knows he cannot simply murder the king. That would destroy his own legitimacy. He needs a third-party auditor and external authority with enough moral weight to authorize a regime change. Pepin drafts a letter to Pope Zachary. Looking at the formal Latin in this correspondence, we see the calculated nature of these exchanges. He asks, is it proper that a man who holds no actual power should continue holding the title of king? For Pope Zachary, the timing of this letter is perfect. As we can see on this map, Rome is isolated. Byzantine protection has evaporated, and expanding Lombard forces are closing in. The Pope is desperate for a heavy military contractor. Zachary issues his ruling. He declares that the wielder of actual power should be called king. With those words, Pepin gets the exact legal cover he needs to execute his hostile takeover. The regime change finally arrives in 751 AD, and it is completely bloodless and clinical. Instead of an execution, the Merovingian brand is physically liquidated through a haircut. Childeric's long braided hair, the symbol of his dynasty's power, is simply sliced off. Under Frankish custom, this act carries binding legal weight. By severing his hair, the Carolingians officially divest Childeric of all royal prerogatives. Childeric is then permanently exiled from the geopolitical board. He is sent here, to the isolated stone confines of St. Bertine Abbey, where he will live out the rest of his days as a monk. With the old executive removed, an assembly of Frankish nobility officially elects Pepin as king of the Franks, launching the Carolingian dynasty. Without fighting a single battle against the sitting monarch, Pepin manages to dismantle a 300-year royal brand using nothing but administrative logic and careful legal maneuvering. But third-party validation isn't free. 3 years later, in 754 AD, the new pope, Stephen II, travels across the Alps to collect on the papal investment. The invoice is presented here, at the Abbey Church of St. Denis. The pope formally anoints Pepin and his sons with holy oil, bestowing on them the title of Patrician of Rome. This ceremony officially grants the new Carolingian brand divine legitimacy, but practically, it functions as a contract for immediate military services against the Lombards in Italy. In 756 AD, Pepin honors the contract. He marches his heavy cavalry south, methodically crushing the Lombard forces that had been besieging Rome. Following the victory, Pepin makes a calculated geopolitical decision. Specifically, he legally transfers the conquered central Italian cities directly to the Pope, instead of returning them to the Byzantine Empire. This land transfer, the donation of Pepin, marks the official beginning of the papacy's temporal reign. The Pope now functions as a secular sovereign over the Papal States, ruling a physical country. Pepin executed the perfect hostile takeover. He liquidated an ancient dynasty using legal strategy, and he purchased his new crown with Italian real estate, forging a Frankish papal machine that would soon conquer Europe.